odd that would, I wonder if they were listening to us.
That happens quite often. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah. And when we did mention the Eagle numbers, they demonized our video too right away.
Yeah, and then I put in for a manual person to review it. There we go. We're up.
Now we
Oh,
are
we're
live.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's coming up. We are there. Folks, we've been here. It's like they're listening to us and so we promise that we won't disclose the secrets of the world. We just won't do that.
Now, is
Yeah.
it just replaying this one? I don't understand why the red.
I don't know
I
either.
don't know either, but it's okay. I got this right here. So
Okay.
it looks
All
like
right, well, we're good. Welcome everybody. We've done this before, so I guess technically we're deja vuing it today. We said hello, we said thank you for tuning in, but nobody was there but it's us. So we'll do this again, and because hey, it doesn't matter whether it's real time, recorded time, or future time, it's still time. So
That's right.
just saying. But we love y'all. Thank you for your patience. And we just speak favor over you because that's what we do here. It works. As I wrote into the comments earlier before the show started, every day you plant a seed, in this case, like favor, that means eventually every day you're going to have a harvest. So if you're going to have a harvest, might as well do something that you really want. So there you go.
Mhm.
Nothing missing, nothing broken, and by all means, be kind to your mind. So this is Thursday. We haven't gotten together, Mike and Cindy, for about 2 weeks. In fact,
Yes, it's
2 weeks
been
today.
2 weeks. We count because this is our Wayne's Day, and we count the days down to Wayne's Day. So
Every
there.
time I hear that, I think of that. Did y'all see that? I forget what show it was about the guy that formed the alt rock Christian rock band, and he wanted to touch Wayne because wanted to feel the Wayne.
Oh,
wow.
feel the Wayne. There we go.
There
Now
we go. So
feel the Wayne.
we're feeling the Wayne today. So welcome. So good to see y'all. And I have to say, it's been an adventurous 2 weeks since then. And I know that I've been watching y'all's show, and the world just continues to be going down this path that makes no sense. And wow, I mean, can we change it? I wrote, and this is what we were talking about before we were going to go live, and then there was this malfunction. Can the seemingly impossible happen? And that is world peace.
Mhm.
Now, Mike and Cindy, I think what we'll do is we'll wait to see. So, when y'all hear that, everybody in the chat room, what is your next thought? I know there's either a 30-second delay or 5 minute, I don't know. We know there's a little delay, but so when you hear that, when they say world peace, what will be the next thing? Does anyone know?
Mm.
We're going to
Matthew
see how many good Bible scholars we have in here.
Matthew 24.
There we go. Yeah, that was the dude that was said to come for peace and love. But actually, what he said is that I did not come to bring peace, but division. I brought the sword to separate husband from wife, son from daughter, yeah, so peace.
Mhm.
So it is. The next thing on that, as y'all know, is that in the mind worm is that when they say that they have peace, sudden destruction shall come upon them. And here we are, Mike and Cindy, closer to war. Oh, there's a war already. I mean, they never stop, but this is the one where everybody gets into the jacuzzi at the same time, and
Mhm.
pass around all the slime. And because that's all jacuzzis are, unless it's just you in there. My feeling is a bacterial breeding ground, but hey, each you have your own way. But anyway, we are here now on the precipice, and the one man who is going to get the Nobel Peace Prize is the now made the decision that well, we're going to send Tomahawk missiles into the fray. And I'm really confused because, why would you broker peace over here but stir the hornet's nest over here? And this is where we find ourselves.
I guess it depends on what you know that you can't say and let everybody else know.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole free speech thing, that's boy, I mean, that's relativity, right? Just depends on what free speech is.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're getting ready to go into absolute craziness. It does feel like that. I think, we've gotten in Cindy's channelings that it's not likely that we would skip that big global war. Um, but I do think we can shorten the duration, the intensity, um, because it's also the thing that ends the system. Ultimately, it's when the people end up saying, "This is crazy. We know what you're doing," and the people put an end to it all over the world. So looking at the different yugas and how many cycles that where we've gone through this and escaping the dark matrix within the natural matrix, it's kind of gone this way each time. And that gets into, how many times have we gone through here? Is this really like, is it Groundhog's Day? Are we on this loop? Are we just running on the treadmill and now we're coming back to that same point in time right before chaos breaks loose and we have a chance for something new and lasting? It's just we go down this repetitive route time after time. I saw somebody talking about, deja vus and the Mandela effect and timeline jumping, timeline shifting. So, I've also seen where and gotten the impression that there's certain like bigger events that have to happen, sort of. Um, but as far as the details, yeah, there's so much that can be done to change all the little details, which when you look at each individual, I think, that's a lot.
Yeah, as you were talking, Mike, and by the way, y'all know who Mike and Cindy is with, you know, Evolutionary Energy Arts, so link is below.
Mm.
Um, so I've been thinking a lot on, all right, so if we are truly on the precipice of a world war, um, how does that unfold? And then bringing it back down on a more one-to-one level, if you look in the United States, our government is broken. It's full of corruption. We've seen this before play out in humanity's past. Every great empire and civilization has collapsed because of the cancer within, not from outside. And it's all been on corruption. And no one living in the United States can say that the system is completely corrupt, completely broken. I did a show that said, all politicians are liars, but not all liars are politicians. And if you look at, for instance, we've have to been dealing with the healthcare system. That system is completely broken. It is completely failed. And if you look at virtually everything that is going on, it is the epitome of what a failed system looks like. Now, I guess the question I am left with is then how do you fix this? If it was broken by the very same people that you're saying are going to fix it, that's insanity.
Right. Yes.
I mean, and that's what's happening here.
Yeah. And well, I look at the world and I think we're in kind of this paradoxical situation because in life in general, when you learn something new, you kind of feel dumb until you learn that thing and then you gain the wisdom. When you want to be strong and you start working out, you feel very, very weak before you gain the strength. We all want peace, but are we going to have to go through the chaos so that we know what true peace is? Just
True. And then as we were talking before we went live, I am doing more and more research and bringing things up to date, that there appears to be a factor that is here, but no one's factoring it in the factor, and that is, are are the is humans the same? I mean,
Mhm.
I was born in the middle of the baby boomers. And it was said that we were the last true generation of humans because we were the ones that didn't have the computers. We channeled them in.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
made them this digital prison for all future generations. And now you have science coming out and saying the 7% factor to the human genome, they can't factor where it's come from. Is this evolution? Is this an evolutionary jump? Or is this evidence of direct gerrymandering of the human DNA?
Well, I'm concerned about this because I've heard enough and I feel enough that they're intending on creating a human being with their new technology that they've ouchied into us. And then they can now lay claim on these beings. And now they're even making it so you don't need a sperm and an egg. You just need an egg and you need some cells. So, literally, I mean, really, the grays. Look at the grays. Now, on my awakening, I had a dream, and grays were in my dream, but they were good grays. There is such a thing. They were good grays. And they showed me how the world was made. And at the end of the dream, they were showing me how to make rainbows with my hands. And it was really quite beautiful. And there was many, many, many grays. And I really wonder, it takes me back to, I've heard so many people say that, are they from our future? And trying
Right.
to help us. I keep hearing that
Yeah.
energy so strong.
Many people say that the grays, some of the grays, because
Some.
some of them are robotic, some of them are a mix of, like Elon cyborgs with either cow or human or some other animal's DNA. But the ones that Cindy is talking about are actually humanity that goes down a certain timeline where we don't break free. And this is what happens is, again, you could see this, in so many different ways. We've talked about, reproductive capability is dropping incredibly. So Homo sapiens sapiens is definitely on the path to extinction. Just when you look at the ability to procreate and have more kids, that's going way down. Sperm counts, fertility, it's just increasing ever quicker. Yeah, everything from the plastics interfering with hormones. It's just, and then we obviously know there's so many people that have made a decision to be the other gender or what have you. All that will end up leading to again um, the a dramatic lessening in the ability of us to reproduce naturally. And there is something about, and Cindy's seen this, there's something about a natural birth that strengthens the soul. And definitely it's the proper way of doing things as opposed to, again, incubators. And I'm not saying in case of emergency, like my sister was born at 5 months and had to be in a,
C-section is different.
that's different.
That's all different. That's still coming out of the womb.
But
So,
when you're talking about manufacturing people, that's really what they're talking, and they've done that. In fact, Homo sapiens sapiens might be completely.
uh-oh.
I hope everything is okay there.
Can we still see us?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
good. Hi.
Homo sapiens sapiens
There we go.
may have initially been introduced via being bred in mass somewhere in some lab. I mean, when you look at it, God, putting us in a Garden of Eden, and you look to Cain and Abel, and Cain for murdering his brother, he's getting banished. But what about the other ones out there? What am I going to do? They might want to kill me. Wait a minute. Aren't you, the first generation, your parents and you, and that's it? No, no, there's others out there, obviously intelligent and human. So what they're referring to is Homo sapiens sapiens, which was, you could see the second chromosome splicing. Most of our DNA was turned off. Only the bare minimum of our DNA is turned on. So yeah, absolutely. What you're saying, that's their plan, is to eliminate Homo sapiens sapiens and have a much more controllable species.
As you were talking, I was just merely showing a couple of recent articles that deal in this specific area about the manipulation of our DNA. And, whether it's the myth story of the garden, or whether it's, the theory of, alien intervention, it appears that something has happened. I am a proponent. I've done a number of shows on this, that really Genesis 6 is really the alternative version of what happened. Was that we are a species that have never been pure. The pure humans are apparently the Anunnaki. They're the
Mhm.
ones that became like the gods, the creators. And it is where we get our imagery of all of our religions of gods. They're all human, or human essence. And there's a reason for that. But that these beings are really geneticists. That's all they are. It's what
Mhm.
they do. They've advanced to that point where it's not about self-replication, but it's about the replication of life itself. And in that mysteries, we've built schools, religions, theologies around, because it's part of the mystery of what makes us who we are. But
Mhm.
if, in fact, what happened in 2005, when we broke the human genome code, we realized that all of us are hybrids. There are no more humans.
Mhm.
So we also know that they capped our DNA to where now they limit us to what life is. Very short period of time. It's sad that we think that a person gets to be 70, that they're suddenly old.
Yeah.
When in fact we should be living to 700.
Yep.
And our intelligence has been limited, which means that then someone is basically cooking the books. And how do you play in a rigged game that's already rigged against you?
It is. And I
It-
think there's a certain level of acceptance we need to come to, that this is my life, and I'm going to make the best of it, because we all create our own surroundings through thought. And maybe it's about mastering that to a very high degree. And when you were going through the DNA, and Mike was talking about the beings that are no longer human, I call them the wombless. And
Ooh, interesting term.
yeah. And I don't like that term. It really bothers me, but it's true. These beings that are coming forward, they're going to be, they're going to be wombless. I don't mean if someone has a C-section or something like that. That's not what I mean. I just mean literally they're no longer grown in the womb, the wombless. And I look at the Cabbage Patch dolls. I mean, there was something there. I believe that was used to kind of jumpstart humanity again. And I think this is their cycle. It's what they do.
I had a
J-
rabbi teach me that Adam, the Adama, was really the first androgynous version of humans, a version of human, and the fact that the first Adama actually carried a womb. He
Mm,
had the ability to self-replicate.
wow. Yeah.
yeah.
And when the other gods came in, because people don't understand from the Bible, in Genesis 1:26, that's a different God than Genesis 2:7 and 9, which
Hmm.
is a different God than what we have in Genesis 9 when Abraham, or Abram, meets this other God. So apparently they split Adam. They literally took the womb of a man and put it into the woman.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, I don't, to me, my mind goes and saying, all right, so let's get the religiosity out of this. So what are they really saying? This sounds to me like an operation. Like, we made a mistake with this model, but, it's going to be very expensive if we have to go back and do it all over again.
Yeah.
So why don't we use this shell that we call woman, and let's just, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how an alien thinks.
Yeah. Well, you
I'm
know,
at a disadvantage, you know?
they've left us so much information. We can see, the scientific uses of what are they called? The beakers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, those are in all the pictures everywhere. So we know it's surgeries, it's science, it's beakers, it's mixing. And, I look at men and women and I really feel that we were separated just to create duality. But, it has to physically look like something. And that's what we are, duality.
I go back to our modern day titans, whether it's Musk or whoever, but we make movies out of that, right? And so the Avengers are all about the titans, you know, and it's a story that is old as the Sumerian story. And I love how we updated this. So the one movie they did, I think, what was it? The Age of Ultron. So this was man's AI that suddenly became aware. The singularity happened, and that's what the movie is based on. And if you want to go watch it, because you see what Ultron did to the the butler kind of AI, destroyed it. And what was Ultron's whole thing? Peace in our time. Well, sometimes that peace means getting rid of us. It's the only way
Yeah,
to
yeah,
have peace.
there's that.
That's what I think the whole point was, Mike. And as
Yeah.
I'm tying into what you were saying, it's like, holy crap, we've been here before. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
have the three of us had this conversation in a different form, but in the exact same circumstance?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, isn't that what Hawking's whole theory was on the fact that, if you look at this in a quantum aspect, that the attraction that happens with individuals through thought, etc., action is not just a random occurrence.
No, it can't be. It can't be. That's where I live my own nightmare every day. Whenever something that I don't like happens, I'm stuck saying, "Oh, nothing is by accident." No matter how icky it is, and no matter how sad, how heartbreaking, sometimes it might be really good, $1 million. Nothing is by accident.
Wow.
I hate that
Yeah, and
sometimes.
you know what, because it gets back to that stupid idiom, it's what the rat said, forget the cheese, just get me out of the trap, you know I
Right?
don't want it, I don't want to take it, I just want out of this place. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, stop the ride. Let me off. My turn.
yeah. There's a lot of, like, when you look at the channeled material that's coming through, the way that they'll phrase it often is that there's a lot of souls getting ready to leave. And yeah, I do think a lot of souls left before the plague upon the land was hitting, because maybe they, learned enough, been through enough, and decided, I don't really want to go through those series of events that are coming. And then there's other souls, I think, that came and they've been waiting for this time because they're maybe thrill seekers. Maybe they like bungee jumping because that's kind of like what it is now. It's going to be a very, very interesting period for sure. But again, I do think we can nudge all the little details for sure. Can we
Yeah.
stop the big events? Can we stop them from pulling triggers and creating another world war? I think if enough of the militaries of the world woke up, yeah, I think it could happen, but it feels like the sand's running out of the hourglass for that one.
Yeah, yeah, and that gets into the whole philosophical, well, theological debate on the validity of prophecy. All right, so if prophecy is real, then who's who's behind the prophecy? I mean, to me, coming from the tech world, my mind goes, well, then who's the architect here?
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
someone has to be the architect of this. This can't be a randomization of chaos. Well, maybe let me retract that. in my limited perspective of thinking, because obviously I don't think like an alien. If there's truly a God, it's me, because when it comes right down to it, I'm the only one that has a conversation with myself. I'm intermixed with many other such beings, but in the end, it's really about us individually, and that's where God is, in my estimation.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally believe that. In my belief, what I have learned and what it works for me when it comes to destiny, there's no changing your destiny. You look at someone's star chart and you can say, okay, this is how things are going to turn out. They have a choice on how they're going to get from point A to their destiny. They get to maybe choose their car, they get to choose the road they drive on, they get to choose if they want to take detours or not. But, ultimately they get to that destiny and that's theirs. So
I
that's
wonder if God has a destiny, or, the idea of a superior intellect consciousness.
That's the thing, that's where when I was in front of Source, I was sitting there and that never entered my mind. So that makes me feel that these are human thoughts, very valid human thoughts, but still that's our human brain. So when you're in
Yeah.
front of that other entity, it's like that's just not there. Or if it is there, I think you have an instant answer. So this is all about our experience. So it's part of your experience to ask the question and play the tape out and figure it out. Part of
I
part of
told y'all about it was more than a vision. It was November 16th, and we were living in Colorado. And anyway, I was taking the shower, but the next thing I knew, I was literally stepping through what we would describe as a force field, a portal. And when I stepped through there, I was carrying this opalescent stone, and it kind of looks something like that. But anyway, it was
Mhm,
in my
mhm,
hands, and there were people on the other side. Um, it was evening because it was dark, but anyway, I ended up going to where I lived, my home. And when I walked in to my domicile, um, there was this. The best way I can do it, because I come from the post-production industry, would be like you had an editor board in front of you, and there were slots that this thing I had sat into. And when I looked at, there were others, and then there were others that didn't have this stone or whatever it was. The long and the short of it is, this powerful entity, source, what we would call God, the supreme thought or whatever, wanted to live through my memories of this life.
mhm, mhm,
And
mhm.
it connected itself to this keyboard anyway. I digress, which really brought back to this whole thing of prophecy. So if there is a prophecy that, for the book of Revelation, I know that book very well. I've read it dozens and dozens of times. I've read the book of Daniel. I've read the prophets. And that's the thing. In ancient Hebrew times, prophets walked amongst the people all the time. They were known because of the fact that they were seers. They were whether we call them shaman, seers, prophets, and prophetesses did in fact live amongst us. It was what our ability was. Now I am of the position we still do it.
Mhm.
The two of you two could be considered prophets and prophetesses. The fact that, Cindy, you connect in your channels shows that like is going to be attracted to light. And so if you're channeling higher intelligence, that means you're of a higher intelligence to begin with.
I can do both. I can channel the higher and I can channel, little elementals. We'll call them elementals. And sometimes they're tricky and sometimes they're not very nice. And you know,
Sometimes they could be mischievous,
But
sometimes they can be
but
mischievous.
yeah,
So,
she's an open channel, so she's kind of rare.
but I'm mischievous too.
Yeah.
You see, that's my point. It's fun, you
Yeah,
know?
it's
Yeah.
fun. Yes.
I think the hard part is, it's like when you're talking to little children that don't understand just how dangerous, say, electricity is. You tell them, don't stick anything in that wall socket. And then what do they got to go do? They're curious, right? And what we have today on Earth is you have a lot of people that have really, really developed to a very high degree. This is why I really do think there's a massive separation coming too.
Mm, yeah.
Because like you and us, we could never go back to viewing, say, the Bible the way that a fundamentalist does. We know where it came from. We've read other different texts. We've studied it inside and out. And the reality is, too, when you look to people that are true scholars, they don't believe it fundamentally. There's no way
Mm,
you can because you know what's behind it. You know the real history. The only ones that could believe it in that manner are there going to be people that are very simple, and haven't looked. They're either too busy and don't view it as important and just do it out of tradition. Never really give it much thought, just kind of like how we do so many things just through routine without even really necessarily thinking about what we're doing. Can we do something more efficiently and more effectively? It's just a habit, and so, or you do it out of deference to family and tradition. But when you really look, it's like listening to a little child that's trying to talk to you about quantum physics, and they don't really know anything about it. And how do you talk down to their level to make them understand? You can't. And so that's where I think we're getting to like a big split because there's going to be people that they're just going to stay with what makes them feel safe and they don't want to feel threatened. And, all of a sudden realizing that everything you believed in has been just a construct to control your mind and keep you in fear. It's terrifying. So I think that is also where people can be very dangerous because, in the Inquisition, they killed tens of thousands, if not millions, in the
I would
Inquisition.
say the seven figures. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then how about the witch hunts? And then what did they do? What did good Christians do to the Native Americans? They wiped them out or crunched them into little, you
Here,
know,
have these blankets.
yeah,
We
Yeah.
got a little bit of smallpox, give you.
Yeah.
absolutely, and again, any one group of people having a belief set where they're the only chosen ones, it's so egotistical, it's laughable. But yet, you still have a big portion of the population that follows these things because they don't have a clue and they're only grasping to what they know, and maybe that's all they could ever handle mentally or emotionally, because it's trauma. It's extremely traumatic to have your belief system damaged or proven to be just a construct. And that's why I think so many people are looking at this Atlas thing with fear and trepidation because they want to find anything to convince them that it's just a psyop. There's nothing to it. Or, well, maybe it's Satan and the fallen angels. I could believe that, but you know, it's really, really traumatic for people to discover that everything they've put as a foundation to their reality is total BS. And this is what the world's facing right now. So yeah, it's a terrifying wake-up call.
Been there and done that. I guess when the full separation happened within my spirit, in my religion, I was really active as a, born again, spirit filled, tongue talking, Christian. I was very much in the camp of Kenneth Hagin, learning about faith, understanding the principles for faith and the destiny that, Cindy, well, because you've done my chart.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Here was this simple man, never graduated from high school, but yet there was a natural flow that I would be in the presence of these so-called great men of God.
Mhm.
And tutored underneath them and began. And as I look at it now, it was part of my initiation. I mean, I learned more about the occult with my former Christianity.
Yep.
We were practicing deep Enochian magic is what we were practicing. Today, Mike, when you were talking, I was literally writing. I was sitting in Branson, Missouri, with at a Kenneth Copeland crusade, and the interesting thing is that my eyes were open where the other 7,000 plus people weren't, and what I was seeing was nothing that what I would call as holy,
Hmm.
but it was there. It feeds off of that deep. When you're talking in issues of faith, it is a direct line to the essence of who we are. And if that faith is firmly believed, even if it's a lie, it becomes alive no matter what.
Powerful. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
anyway, I'm free. It is very, it as you said, my whole inner core was shattered. Lynn found me in the den downstairs. I was in a fetal position.
Oh.
I mean, I
Mhm.
was
Right.
sobbing uncontrollably because when that reality hit, it hit as a jolt of light. I mean, it literally blinded my spiritual eye. I mean, yeah. So I've been there. Yeah.
It's like as you're bringing it back, two memories are coming to me from like 30 years ago. And once I chaperoned my daughter and her friends to a concert in which Marilyn Manson was there. And, I could see, literally feel and see, the demonic entities going around everybody. And I felt that too in some churches. I've felt it too in some of these, more unfortunately, some of the ones like I do believe in laying on hands. I do believe, there's a lot of good teachings there. But like you're saying, when you're talking about Kenneth Copeland, there was a particular pastor that, like I think I mentioned before, he had like 30 something BMWs, literally buying up the entire town type of thing. And, the energy behind him was the exact same energy as that was behind the Marilyn Manson concert. And I could sense the feeding frenzy by these dark entities. But, again, I do think if the real Yeshua was to come today, he would look at people like Kenneth Copeland and all the top religious and political people and say, "Get behind me, Satan," because you're the adversary to true peace.
Yeah, and Yahshua is never a Christian.
No,
In fact, I think I can show you exactly where he said, "Don't get involved with those things."
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do view him as an Essene. Are you familiar with the Essenes, Wayne?
Uh-huh. Yeah, very
Yeah,
much
I mean,
so. Yeah.
they lived outside of society as much as possible to keep themselves from being tainted by society. So the Essenes were waiting for teachers of righteousness. And, I think that is what he was, So they were looking for somebody to bring true teachings. And when you look at his teachings, again, it's all about empowerment. I do think there's stuff put in there that is put in there for the express purpose of dividing us. I think that some of the stuff that's attributed to him is not really him. But I do think like
The
when
thing
he
about it
taught,
is, Mike, he never wrote anything.
no, they were all illiterate. They were
So,
all illiterate. None of them
I
could
mean,
could
if
read or write,
so, if
you
he never
know?
wrote anything, how do I know that you're saying he said, because none of that happened for like 90 years? Well, Paul's writings, and I always go, well, wait a minute, how did Paul know to write? Well, but he never did write about this Jesus. He wrote about his vision of Jesus, and then you get the cats who knew the cat, who knew the dude. They don't write anything for like 70 to 80 years. Wait a minute. Anyway. And then
Just,
who's the Christian God? Now, I'm a Bible student. I mean, and here I challenge myself because you have to, is to tell me who the Christian God is.
Hmm. Hmm.
I can't find anything on it, him or whatever. You
Yep.
can't tell me that it's the Old Testament God because I know what Yahweh is all about. And he ain't no loving peace
Mm,
dude.
no,
This dude's about war. That's all he is a war god.
absolutely.
So that brings us right back to where we are. So is this all the result of an ancient Mesopotamian deity that has somehow masked itself in a manner that it pushes us as a species into these continual wars, which are nothing more than a huge worship platform where humans are put on the altar to be sacrificed?
I think to say things simply for those like it that are watching us right now, because I know the majority understand this. I think you look at what we interpret as God really being an Anunnaki or a group of Anunnaki,
Mm, yeah.
and what we take as Satan, is really reptilian. It's but they both play with us. Go to the Book of Job, and they both take delight in playing with humans. So none of them are our friends. Just that simple.
I'm sorry, I just had this image just pop.
I think we had the same image because I started laughing too. No, yeah,
All
they're just
right,
having a good
moving
old
right on
time.
along. This is a G-rated show.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were talking
Laughter
about,
doeth the heart is a good medicine. That's
I
all I gotta
know,
say.
I love laughing. Laughing is great. But when you were talking about your chart and I got to thinking about destiny again, and you did go through, the Bible, the religious sectors, and you learned everything very much into religion and on. That's how I got here too. I went through the Bible. It led me to here, which thank goodness, because I'm so expanded. But no matter which road you took, you're still going to be where you're at, and that's a spiritual teacher. I mean, that is so embedded in your chart. There's no avoiding that. So even if you stop doing this, you're going to end up being a spiritual teacher of some kind.
Yeah, you humble me, Cindy, because it's even in my hand now. I did not know that, but so I found out that I have this mystical cross, that,
Aha.
yeah, it's
Yep.
right there, folks.
Right there.
Right
There
there.
it is.
And yeah, it's so angels all have marks on them that identify who they are. Well, so do we.
Hmm. Hmm.
The
Hmm.
palm is the signed contract that we signed ourselves to coming in. This is just my philosophy into this realm. And if you want to know where you are in your contract, you have to learn to read what the contract says about you.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm. That's fun. Palm reading, I think, is great. And the other thing that I thought was really fun when I was doing your chart is I came up with I kept seeing a cross. I kept seeing a cross here, and you told me about that story.
Yeah. How'd
That
you know
somebody
that?
it
Wow.
just kept coming to me when I was reading your chart. And that happens when I read people's charts. I get visions. So, it makes it interesting.
You just pulled me back to that moment. I'm sitting in that car. That's weird. You ever
Yeah.
get that? I get that effect I can do. It's just we all know. I know we all can do this, where the memory you're suddenly there and you're split
Yeah.
in the spatial reality.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I was right back, and the guy is turning around the front seat, and that's what he was saying.
I think again, when we really practice meditation, what we can achieve is can be amazing. Absolutely, because I could do the same thing and even recall all of a sudden scents, smells, like
Yeah,
what a
yeah.
room smelled like and everything. It comes back so vividly. It's almost like to the point where you could bilocate. Um, I keep getting this image that in some ways the real us is somewhere else, and we have on these AI type of helmets, or what have you. It could be a symbolic thing, but we're all in here. Each one of us has a helmet on saying, that my experience is separate from yours and mine's separate from Cindy's, but we're all in that same collective reality having our own experience. So, you could look at, we all see each other a little differently, I think, and we see circumstances differently. It's
Yeah, we
because we're,
do.
yeah, yeah, and then there's this collective agreement. What happens when the collective agreement is trashed? Like new revelations, new realizations. All of a sudden, the collective agreement is like wavering. Then I think we have the chance to create new paths, in a much bigger way.
I agree with you. I have that understanding, of what biblical prophecy's all about. I got that. I've read, there in prophecy filtrates through all cultures, which tells me that then there's something of a much greater scale taking place here. And surely I'm not the first who ever stumbled upon this, because that's what probably every great religion is founded on, is that same epiphany. There's something greater than myself going on here. Am I just a cog in this bigger, vast picture, or does my existence here somehow either aid or take away from what has been prophesied? Because I still believe that humanity has it within us, whether we're hybrids, whether we're damaged, whether we're whatever, that we still have this thing called the spark, whether it's your soul or your spirit. But if we could ever get past Babel, and unite in thought again, I think we can reverse this thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
I know that sounds impossible, but I really believe that earnestly within my being. Maybe that's who I am. I've always been a dreamer, always been an entrepreneur, risk taker. And and when my time to leave this realm, that will be my wish for the others, is that rise up within you and realize that you can change this. You don't have to go with the paradigm.
It's about breaking our patterns, and it
Yeah.
really starts with us. And that's why I got into tuning forks and biofield tuning and understanding, because of my own trauma, my own PTSD. I couldn't break out of my own pattern. And when you
Did you
do,
have a similar experience where, the core shatters? I mean,
I did, but I got angry instead of crying. I just got downright angry. I got very angry.
I can
I
see
was
that.
just, because of what I'd gone through the system that's set up, trying to fix me, trying to help me, function. These people, I guess, they're just doing their best. They're going by what they know. So, but for me personally, I was very angry. So it took me some time to walk through that. And I try to be a lot more compassionate now and understanding with people who might be in the medical industry, or psychiatrists, psychologists, therapy. They're only doing what they know. And it's like they're healers that kind of got hijacked into the
Yes.
system. And
Yeah.
it's not their fault.
No, and it's really so wild. Like over the years, I and we have worked on so many medical professionals, and even a lot of people that do counseling, psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and stuff. And it's so encouraging that, as time has gone down over the last like 12, 13 years of seeing two, three dozen people a week in doing this type of thing, the amount of people that are getting so open to looking at things in a new way, embracing energy work, Reiki, Qigong, biofield tuning. It's amazing, because these people have seen what the system provides. They're still in the system in many cases, but boy, have they opened up their mind and expanded. And that's really where I see a lot of hope too, because crossing over, yeah, there's some useful things in the Western system, but there's a lot that's not. There's a lot that's detrimental. And
Yes.
I do see a lot of positive change. And in fact, I mean, I know people that were psychiatrists, licensed social workers, and then become Reiki masters, Reiki master teachers, and start studying even more, and starting to integrate into their practice a lot of these things. So that's the hope. Like when you were talking about, we had the gift of prophecy back in the day and it was much more abundant. I do think that's because we had functioning pineal glands. And they have shut that down to a high degree for the Kali Yuga. Now we're back to where pineal glands are coming on and they're actually starting to function again. So people could see through the BS. And it's very easy to tell somebody that has an open pineal gland and somebody that has a closed one. You could just see it.
You
The
know,
energy
one of the
is
signs
different.
for me is I had
But
someone write this recently. They said, because I I've repressed it for a number of years, but there was a time where I lived speaking in tongues. Now, speaking in tongues requires that pineal gland to be operating and opening. And so this answers a question that several people have written me. So I am no longer a Christian. I have nothing to be associated with that. Everyone's got their own beliefs. But someone wrote, well, then how can you still speak in tongues? That's supposedly a gift of the Holy Spirit. And so you've walked away from the religion. How would that then still allow you to speak in tongues? And it's a good, valid question. But the Holy Spirit isn't a Christian spirit. It's
no,
non-religious, folks. And my pineal gland has been open since my experimentation with LSD 1970, 71, 72. It never shut off. And that's why you saw it in my chart, Cindy,
Mhm.
that was where it was going. That was because even though I wasn't aware that it was open,
Yeah.
it was yet always guiding me into those paths. And what it led me into the paths were many other individuals whose gland was either awakening. It can be opened, but you also have to have that awakening with it. There's a
Yeah.
two part to that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 And today, I can at times just fall to my knees being humbled because at least I've carried that forward now.
Mhm.
And it's tremendous. They are gifts.
Yeah.
Maybe they're gifts that we give to each other. I don't know.
No, absolutely. I think it's our natural state. It really is our natural state is to have a fully functioning pineal gland. They have to shut it down because then we could believe in their dogma. When it's working, you don't believe in the dogma. You could even see and recognize past lives. We've seen several, of our past lives. Cindy again has communicated with a lot of people that have moved on.
And
And
folks, I just want to say, if you want to get a good reading, get with Cindy. I mean, she'll blow your mind. That's all I got to say. So,
Thanks.
Mike, excuse me, I just wanted to give that shameless plug in there. But
Thank you,
anyway,
Wayne.
Well, that's again, that's the difference between the knowing that the Gnostics were talking about. It's experiential. You know it, so you're no longer in the dark. You know that say for instance, the fundamentalist mindset is totally wrong because you've seen people that move on. You might have remembrances of past lives, things like that, interactions with all sorts of beings. It just isn't real. That's a construct, and unfortunately, that's part of the big war. Because again, Islam has been basically created to be a counterweight to Christianity to set them against each other when the time is right. As well as, of course, during that whole time that they've existed, they've been used to manipulate and control people. They've given rationale for committing atrocities. But people are waking up and their pineal glands are starting to come online, even with all the fluoride that they pumped into us all these years.
and that was my search for God. I wasn't looking for the dead God that was called the church. I've always been in search of that supernatural entity, that deity that was exceeded the abilities of what I know the realm of reality does. And I'm here to tell everyone I have found that, and it's not a god. It's not a goddess. It is something that is even above that. But and the thing I'm learning, and at the times, I mean, like today I was out early this morning looking at that full moon and just giving thanks because there is this path where it's unconditional
Hmm.
and it's real. And that's why I believe that we have the ability to turn this thing around, going full circle here, to not have to say that this is going to end up costing the world the lives of million or potentially billions of innocent souls. Maybe that's what we're here for. When I look at you two, I get the sense of masters, and you know, the way I've always seen it in life is that you typically hang around those who you find to be your equal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
Namaste.
Namaste.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, we could sit back and, share, a glass of tea, and I don't drink coffee or chocolate. Love chocolate, but all gods and goddesses love chocolate.
Now
That's
I
why
know.
some of us came through all this just so we could experience the chocolate. Raise
Again.
your hand.
Again. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a heavy experience, and it's a experience of duality. It's not our natural state. But when you do, like when Cindy channels some of these very, very high frequency beings, the feeling of love is just so palpable, and it's so beyond what we see in the everyday world.
Yeah.
It's just obvious they're on a different density, very high.
And that's always what I look at, the entity that people assign to these darkness, and many times they're not dark at all. I mean, my experience again with Lilith, and I understand that the legend and what have you, but she's a really cool chick. I mean, she really
Hmm.
is. I've never seen a bad. I've heard the bad side of her, but you know,
Lilith gets stuff done.
she
She gets stuff done.
she really does.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
found out that was another thing in my palms that I've been learning. So I'm really getting into this. Because do you know that palmistry has been outlawed for hundreds of years, particularly through the Christian church,
Yeah.
because it far exceeded that?
I believe it. The ghost dance was made illegal for a lot of years for Native
Yeah.
Americans. That was
Yes.
oh no, can't do that.
My mom
Yeah.
read palms and read tea leaves, so she used to do that. I,
Yeah.
I,
It's unique.
yeah, I've studied it and I've done it a little bit. It's been a while, but
It's fun stuff. I like it.
It is fun stuff. It's
Hmm.
it's really like, if I had learned how to read this, I'm going, well, damn, I would have certainly avoided that if I could have, but then again, I look at it through all the tragedy of my life. Each one has been a gemstone in my crown. And because it allowed me to experience that which I would have been fearful from even acknowledging. And as I've passed through each one of these tragedies, I've learned within me that no matter what the tragedy may be, I will always come out the other side better than I did when I went in.
Always. Oh,
Always.
and
absolutely.
that can be a very bittersweet thought sometimes, but it's true. It's true, no matter what you're going through. And I mean, sometimes I get so angry because I just know I'm gonna come out better, but darn it, I don't want to do it.
I
You
love
know?
y'all.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing about the inevitability. And, like you were saying, is this the only future? How about, for the individuals, because are we all going to share the same future? You have the whole ideology of the Christian rapture, and again, being saved. I think again, I've gotten like big revelations on that, and thought, what are they doing with that? Are they talking about a mass abduction? a mass abduction event. And what if they're getting saved and they find themselves working the mines under the surface of Mars? Think about
Yeah,
what it really says. When you really, really look to the day of the Lord, it's a day of terror and dread. But I don't, I think we're having a, I think there is a separation coming. I think to Bigfoot. Why don't we always see Bigfoot? Well, it seems like he's got the ability to make himself invisible. And we saw with Predator, the use of technology to make yourself invisible. But there is natural technology because, like, as I shared with you, December 2017, I woke to a tall gray, sabotaging my energy body. This was after the Illuminati reached out to me and I turned them down. And so, I had this entity, I could feel it, screwing with my energy body. And it faded out of existence. It was just really like Star Trek getting beamed up. It broke eye contact with me immediately, looked away, seemed to be in a meditative state, and I would swear it was at least 30 seconds that I could see it. Then it turned into just like that fuzz on a TV that has no channel. It was like that, just an energy pattern and then gone. So I do think, when you look to also, what was that big series? Celestine Prophecy. If you
hmm
ever see the movie, The Celestine Prophecy, which is cheesy, but it shows when these people are getting discovered by negative military forces. They're trying to hold a high frequency, and the military forces run right by them, don't see them. Then, as soon as they get fearful, all of a sudden, the military sees them. I
I
think
believe that.
there's something like that in our future where we go to, I think, a little bit higher channel.
Well, look at lizards and fish. I mean, they can just blend right in with where they're at. And maybe that's what that thing did. It just blended in all of a sudden. Yeah.
I think that time is not what we perceive to be. Time, I can literally, I believe that you can, if you understand how the forces work, time can be divided. It can be partitioned off, and we don't have the technology. We may not have the mental um, ability yet. I mean, you have to exercise these things, but I'm convinced that's how it is because that's what death is. Death shares the same space-time, but when that moment of separation happens, space-time begins to be separated.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if it can happen at death, then that tells me it can happen without death.
Hmm.
Anyway, um,
Well, it has to. It's your cells. Our cells are
y'all
programmed.
weren't there with me. I was
To.
I was in this place that was pretty far out. I'm looking at this huge and going, yeah, can't you see that this time can literally, and it's like, yeah,
It's fun. It's all very fun.
I'll get back out of the classroom. But hey, it's a lot of fun.
Well, that's what we're in for. Is definitely interesting times, and it's all about the frequency. So I think, the horizons have expanded greatly, and I do think once we get past this bumpy period, if you could keep your frequency high, then I think the sky's the limit. I think it's just like this period that we're talking about right now, that future. Past that, it's good. It's going to be good. I don't see a dystopian society, at least not. I don't see us taking part of that type of dystopian society where you're chipped and it's just miserable slavery. I don't see that. I think that's the past, and we would never choose that.
Yeah, I was drawn to the fact that, my teaching and background with the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and then there's supernatural gifts that when humans are endowed with them, humans begin to have supernatural abilities. And we've been talking about the role of the prophet. If I think within the chat room and those whether on the channel, on your main channel, that there are many that watch us, you don't understand you have these abilities, and if again it's the realization that they exist, and that there is a power source, if you want to call it a Holy Spirit and call it whatever you want, but it does this most amazing thing with us humans, that when you're endowed with this energy, it is up of a uplifting energy. Prophecy should be a guidance within all of our lives. We should have the ability, if not to see all the way into the future, at least we can begin to anticipate future events. And that's what personal prophecy for me is. I've laid hands on many of people and had just, what I was seeing back then, the Holy Spirit speak through me, but and it turned out that there were very accurate things that this person received. So
Mhm.
anyway, I encourage y'all to look into that. That's all I got to say.
Yes.
All right. We've really gone over. I appreciate that. I really do.
It's
I
been
love
fun.
y'all. These
Great.
conversations are edifying and I hope all of y'all listen to that it lifts you up. That's what edification means. It means to rise you into a higher place of being, and that would be a higher level of energy. And when you're there, there's some far out beings there. They can't traverse down here. That's what we do. But when we traverse back up there, yeah, it's a party.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Do y'all
Thank
have
you
anything
so
you
much.
want to say as we lead this thing out? Because, I've really loved this conversation.
It's
It's the
been
repeater.
really good. I think we, keep our eye on the ball, and I believe that, we don't succumb. Create your boundaries with the technology that we have, because Mike and I, we know where our boundaries lie when it comes to medicine and what we will and won't do. And other things like, we'll never get chipped, we won't get an ouchie, and we'll face anything to not do those things. And those are our boundaries, they're our sacred boundaries. And, I shouldn't speak for him, but I'm pretty
Oh
sure he's
no,
the same.
yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And it might be that you find yourself in a place, that maybe is not resonating anymore because the geopolitical system could change in the blink of an eye with everything that's going on. So yeah, it's always good to plan and prepare. No fear, just plan, prepare, and again, that daily spiritual practice is the most important thing because connecting to your higher self, that's really what we have to do. Is once you have that good connection, just keep honing it, developing it, and you'll be in the right place at the right time then.
Yep,
And
indeed.
as far as prophecy is concerned, I know my prophecy. See, I know technically I'm already gone. If the future exists and that's where prophecy is tied to the future, I've already graduated and I'm out of here.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it means that I'm merely reliving a memory, which is a pretty good memory. All
Because
of y'all are in my memory, so that's pretty far out.
and you can have chocolate.
Exactly. I can still have chocolate. I really
Yeah.
like chocolate. Found this bread that I know completely off it, but I'm driving the bus, so I know where we're going. But uh, delicious. It's made with coffee and chocolate,
Ooh,
cocoa.
wow.
And
Yeah.
oh, I mean,
Mm.
it's the kind of bread you can just, and I know bread has a lot of the carbs and what have you, but who cares? You're only
Right?
here.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay, I love it. Chocolate lovers unite, and
Yeah.
I'm not a coffee drinker, but when you bake with it, it really does enhance the chocolate.
Hmm.
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 I don't know, new discoveries. Probably someone's out there going, "Well, Steiger, don't you know that that's how it works?" Yeah, all right. I'm just a simple guy. That's all I got to say. You know, simple guy asking simple questions.
Fair enough.
Mike and Cindy, I love y'all. Hope to see you again next Thursday.
We
Make
do
sure that
too.
We love
Yes.
you too.
It's a date.
good.
Yeah,
And
it's a
Absolutely.
make sure
date.
to subscribe over there. And folks, I'm serious about this. The thing with Cindy and with the Mike and them, they work as a team, but as far as what I've experienced in her doing my chart, it can answer a lot of questions no matter where you are in life. And if you're like where I am, I'm still in my youth. I'm just in a different age of my youth. Um, it's remarkable. because you can look back, you go, holy crap, there's really stuff to this. So that's what I'm saying. It helps.
It's
And
very helpful. It is
it
very
is.
helpful. Yes, I
So
check mine. I check mine more than I should, but it helps me.
it's a guide.
Yep.
It is. Yeah.
Absolutely. Transits, knowing what's going on in your personal
Oh,
astrology,
coming up.
that's key,
Yeah.
so keeping those things in mind.
Yeah.
I look at it one of those old time signposts, that could change, ding, and then you get further in your life, and all of a sudden, ding, you get another one that comes down. It's the same guidepost, but it's giving you different, how to tune in, the direction.
It sure does. Yep.
Yeah.
It's
So
great.
did that just live in your heads? All right, everybody, we love y'all. See
Thanks,
you.
Frank.
I won't be on here tomorrow, but look forward to being hopefully on Monday. So, and who knows, I may just, get energetic and do something over the weekend. But anyway, Mike and Cindy, much love to you too. Love
Much love,
y'all,
everyone. Thanks, everyone in chat.
Namaste.
everybody. So have yourselves a good one. Until we meet again, remember, be kind to your mind.